Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking a truly revolutionary concept, something that is going to fundamentally rewire how nations govern in the 21st century. We're talking about a massive leap from the old, slow, reactive ways that governments operate today into a totally new paradigm called the augmented state. And at the absolute center of this shift is an incredible piece of architecture, le jumeau numérique national et institutionnel, or the national and institutional digital twin. Now, I know that sounds like pure science fiction, but it's not just a digital map. It is a living, breathing simulation of an entire country's government working as a single organism, and as we're going to see, it is rapidly becoming a reality.
To understand why we even need this, let's start with a staggering number: $467 billion. According to the OECD and the EU Intellectual Property Office, that is what the global economy loses every single year just to counterfeiting. It's about 2.3% of all international trade. And look, we're not just talking about fake designer handbags here. Think about counterfeit aerospace parts quietly slipping into commercial jet maintenance, or fake pharmaceuticals making their way into a hospital's supply chain. It's terrifying, right? This number exposes a massive fundamental breakdown in our global system's ability to verify what is actually real.
Which brings us face to face with a really deeply unsettling question. How can a nation actually govern if it cannot trust reality? Think about it. If a government can't verify the physical reality of the goods crossing its borders, or even trust the data sitting in its own ministries, then every decision it makes is essentially just guesswork. It's a massive, foundational vulnerability for any country.
So, to figure out how we solve this geopolitical puzzle, we're going to break this explainer down into 5 quick parts. The current crisis of governance, the national digital twin itself, how you build a state brain, the memory engine called deep authenticity, and finally, what the augmented state of tomorrow looks like.
Let's jump right into part 1, the crisis of governance, and why our modern states are just so incredibly vulnerable right now.
The hard truth is, our modern states are basically flying blind. They're operating in an environment they were simply never built to handle. We've got extreme global interconnectedness, public administration has become impossibly complex, and as we just saw, there's this crippling inability to verify material reality. Because governments are constantly relying on fragmented, outdated data, their policies end up being almost entirely reactive. Whether it's a sudden supply chain collapse, a global health emergency, or national security threat, the crisis hits long before anyone even detects it. The state is just endlessly playing catch-up.
But enter the architect of the solution, Saeed Smalala. He's a strategic thinker who realized that the modern world has totally lost its grip on material truth. Smalala's vision is wild because it goes way beyond just making a new piece of tech. He designed an entire governance architecture. His goal? To give states back their ability to actually see, understand, and protect what is circulating in their economies. It's a brilliant, systemic cure for this global vulnerability.
Which brings us to part 2, that visionary architecture itself, the national digital twin. This is really the heart of our explainer today. Now pay close attention to the full French title here, le jumeau numérique national et institutionnel. That institutional part is an absolute game changer. This isn't just some static database of roads and bridges. A national and institutional digital twin is a dynamic, evolving replica of the state itself. Imagine a system that observes everything: economic shifts, social trends, health metrics, in real time. It simulates the citizens, the markets, and most importantly, the actual government agencies. It acts as a national brain, constantly scanning the horizon, analyzing risks, and recommending optimal policies with literal scientific precision. So, part 3. How on earth do you actually build the architecture for a state brain? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a living organism. First, you have the foundation, the skeleton. That's highly secure, sovereign national data. Second, you build the analytics layer, the brain. This uses macro and behavioral AI, meaning it doesn't just crunch GDP numbers, it actually predicts how human beings will react to things. Third, you add the simulation layer, where you can project the future and test the law before it ever passes. And finally, the decision-making layer, the nervous system. This feeds real-time strategic dashboards directly to presidents and prime ministers, giving them instant early warning alerts. And what's really clever is that this system isn't just one giant, clunky monolith. It's decentralized into these highly specialized institutional sub-twins. So the Ministry of Health gets its own twin to track hospital saturation. Education tracks student flows. The economy twin monitors GDP tensions. Every single agency gets its own dedicated radar, but, and this is the kicker, they are all perfectly interconnected.
If the economy subtwin spots a severe trade dispute, it automatically pings the health subtwin about a potential shortage in imported medical supplies. Suddenly, the entire government is speaking the exact same language.
Because everything is connected, a government can basically use this to time travel. Through simulation, they can test massive, high-stakes scenarios. What if global oil prices crash tomorrow? What happens if a critical border closes overnight? If we pass this specific tax, is it going to trigger social protests in one specific region? The twin models all of it, the winners, the losers, the political fallout. It means leaders can literally simulate a crisis, optimize their exact response, and fix the problem before it ever happens in the real world. No more guesswork.
But of course, a simulation is completely useless if the data is bad, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So, for part 4, let's look at deep authenticity, the memory engine that makes all of this possible.
Deep authenticity is the unshakable foundation of truth for this whole system. It stacks cutting-edge tech together. You've got blockchain to create an infallible memory. You have the Internet of Things, like NFC chips, making sure the physical object actually matches the digital record. You layer in advanced AI to spot behavioral anomalies, and you wrap the whole thing in 512-bit cryptography so the data is virtually unhackable. By proving every single piece of data mathematically, it completely eliminates those blind spots and contradictions between government departments.
Just look at the difference here. On one side, you have the old way. Fragmented data, endless contradictions, totally unverified sources leading to absolute reactive chaos. But when you filter a nation's data through deep authenticity, everything changes. You get mathematical proof. You get total sovereign control, meaning a nation's data stays securely inside its own borders. It forces everyone to speak one unified language, bringing an unbelievable level of stability to the country.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the world? Let's move to our final section, the augmented state of tomorrow, and look at the geopolitical future.
We are witnessing a profound evolution in how power works. The traditional state is slow. It's fragmented. It frequently has to rely on foreign analysts just to understand its own economy. But the augmented state, it's lucid. It's completely harmonized across every ministry. It doesn't wait for a crisis. It neutralizes it proactively. Most importantly, it is entirely sovereign, generating its own absolute strategic truth without relying on anybody else. I want to highlight this quote from the source material because I think it just perfectly nails the magnitude of what we're talking about here. It is the first time in history that a country can visualize, project, correct, stabilize, strengthen, and understand itself. That is just wild to think about. For the very first time, a nation doesn't just have to react to the winds of fate. Through le jumeau numérique national et institutionnel, a country can actually look in the mirror, understand its own complex mechanics, and secure its future with scientific precision.
So, I want to leave you with one final, provocative question to chew on. The very first nations to adopt this complete digital twin are obviously going to gain a massive, durable advantage on the global stage. So, in this fast-approaching era of the augmented state, what is going to happen to the nations that fall behind? Are they just going to be swallowed up by the reactive chaos of the past while these new augmented nations sail into the future? It is a huge question about the very survival of governance itself. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the systems that shape our world.